So The Reckoning was a labor of love, as In Search of Adventure was a labor of love. I got to, with In Search of Adventure, it was an accidental book, because I write the RCMP Veterans monthly newsletter, and every month I interview a new veteran. And after a while, I had so many great stories, someone said to me, you should turn that into a book. And I said, geez, I just knew somebody who knew how to do that. So I called the flankers, and they said, yes, absolutely, let's make a book out of it. So we did, and the book is selling very well all across Canada, and we're very happy with that. And then in between all those interviews and writing, I did The Reckoning. The Reckoning is another book in the Operation Wormwood series. Someone asked me if is this the end of the Operation series. It's not. The next book is called Operation Trafficked, completely different genre, or a different book, but same characters. So I love all the characters in my Operation series, and that's why I keep repeating them, coming right back through. And I know in writing they always say you should kill your darlings, don't get used to your characters. But I love my characters so much that I can't. And one of the biggest, I guess one of the most frequent questions I get is, did Sergeant Myra die? And obviously he didn't, because he's back in Reckoning. All my characters are based on real people. Father Peter Cook, who plays a huge role in the book, is based on Reverend Rob Cook from St. Mark's Anglican Church. Reverend Rob couldn't be here tonight, but I had many, many discussions with Reverend Rob about religion, and he really taught me what religion should be, and I think Father Peter Cook is the priest every religion needs right now. Sergeant Myra is based on many, many good police officers that I work with, and there are so many great police officers out there making a difference every day. Mostly his character is based on my husband Robert, who is retired from the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary. These characteristic traits that I put into Sergeant Myra, making him so relatable, flawed, and it just forces you to root for him. So I'm very excited about Sergeant Myra being back in this book. Also, this book introduces another new character, Constable Bill Morgan. He is based on retired Sergeant Bob Morgan from the RNC, one of the most honorable police officers you will ever meet in your lifetime, and it was fun to put you in the book. I'm not going to kill you off.
It's good to know.
I've never been, through all the books, I try to keep them exciting as thrillers, but I also try to have some type of message behind each book, and there's all kinds of hidden things in the book. And I've never been afraid to tackle the big issues and some really kind of rough subjects. One of them is suicide. I always put suicide in my books because I just want people talking about it all the time. Tina Davies is here. Tina is the president of Richard's Legacy Foundation. Tina and I met to discuss suicide many times. Her son Richard died by suicide, and she created this Richard's Legacy in his name. If you ever want to donate to a charity, this lady runs this out of her own bank account, and she does amazing work. So she's actually in my book too. See, when you go to coffee with me, it's because I'm interviewing you to see if you're going to be in the book. But Tina has been an angel to me over the suicide of my brothers, and has really counseled me through a lot of that, as she does to so many, dozens and dozens and dozens of families. She organizes every year down in St. Mark's, she organizes a mass before Christmas, where she invites families of survivors of suicide families to come and bring pictures of their loved ones. And I've been going for many years, and every year the altar gets more full with pictures of people of all ages, and just, 80-year-old men and 12-year-old boys, and it's shocking, but an epidemic. And she does all this work, like I said, out of her own pocket. So thank you, Tina, for that. And thank you for letting me put you in the book. Nancy, my best friend, is here with me. Nancy's been with me since I was very rare to say that you can have a friend in this day and age for your whole life, but she really has been my friend for my whole life. And she edited this book, as she edits all my work, and has been editing me since we were 5 years old because she was always a speller. Flanker asked me to read a chapter, and the chapter I chose to read is actually chapter 4 in the book, because one, it's short, and two, it kind of talks about policing today. One of the main questions I get from the media when I'm promoting In Search of Adventure or The Reckoning or Wormwood is they'll always ask, you know, what's going on with policing in the world today? Should you be writing books about policing? And I said, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I write it for the 99% of great police officers out there trying to do their job every day. So, you know, I don't have a problem with that. At this chapter, in chapter 4, we know that Sergeant Myra is back. There's been a shooting in the parking lot of the RNC parking lot where a police officer has been shot by a suspect who was hiding behind a garbage bin. So at this point, Chief Robert De Silva is meeting with his media relations person and talking about the news conference he's about to have to address the media about the shooting, and he calls for Sergeant Myra to come up and brief him on the issue. Now, I have to warn you, there's some swear words. Anybody in here don't like swear words? Stop being an asshole. Okay. Chief Robert De Silva had one look, very serious all the time. He stood in his office, flanked by the media relations officer. The chief struggled to fasten the hooks off the collar of his dress uniform. 18 hours had passed since the shooting, and each minute felt like a year to him. God damn it, why do they make these so small? His sausage-like fingers fumbled with the hooks until they found their holes. Is Myra here yet? He grumbled. He's on the way, the nervous media relations officer answered. Chief De Silva stretched his neck around in the too-tight collar and pulled at itchy wool to get it away from his skin. Pass me those media notes and I'll take a look. Myra took up the whole frame of the door to the chief's office. Sir, he saluted and walked in. Nick, take a seat. I want to run these by you. Chief De Silva took the prepared statement that had been written for him and tossed it on his desk. What's on the go? Myra sat in a big leather armchair. I'm holding a news conference in an hour to address the shootings. I just left the war room so I can update you on the latest. Myra took his notebook out of his blazer pocket. De Silva continued to pull at the uncomfortable collar, now making his neck red. Give it to me. Here's what we have so far. The shooter was hiding behind the large garbage bin waiting for officers to start their shifts. It doesn't seem like he was targeting anyone specific. We believe he was planning to target the first one who came close to him. Myra flipped a page in his notebook. De Silva straightened his uniform. Motive? It's going to be extremely difficult for us to definitely say what the motive was. Obviously, we can question the shooter. What do you think the motive was? Well, he lived in a boarding house downtown, and from what his roommate told us, his nose was bleeding heavily, and he was in a lot of pain. He figured he must have wormwood. According to him, the shooter would often get into an agitated drug and alcohol-induced state and start ranting and raving about how the police gave him wormwood and how he would get them for it. Myra tapped his notebook. I think he knew he was going to die and he wanted to take a cop with him, then go out by suicide by cop. Bastards, sputtered Chief De Silva. A patrol officer returned fire and was able to hit the shooter's center mass. He died instantly. So he got what he wanted. How was the officer who took out the shooter? Pretty shaken up and worried that other Wormwood victims will find out his name and address and target his family. Internals took his gun and reassigned him to a desk job. I just hope he's not dragged through the media. Myra looked at the media relations officer. I hope you're watching that. The officer fumbled for his pen. Yes, sir, I'll keep an eye on it. Chief De Silva stared out the window at nothing in particular. You're forever changed when you take a life, even if it's justified. All that officer wanted was to go home safely at the end of the day. He didn't start out wanting to kill anyone. How is our officer in the hospital? He's out of surgery and recovering. It could go either way. The chief put down his sheet of media lines and looked directly at Nick. His family? His wife is with him. They have a 2-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. Our officers are doing everything they can to help. Jesus, De Silva let out a heavy sigh. I want to run these media statements by you. He picked up the sheet of paper while the media relations officer sat up in the chair next to Myra. Chief De Silva dismissed the formality of the event. Thank you for coming. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the family of our officer who is recovering in hospital. The chief paused. God, I hate that. Our thoughts and prayers. It's so overused. He then picked up where he left off. He is out of surgery and we pray for his speedy recovery. The investigation into the shooting may take months as our officers try to make sense of what happened. De Silva cleared his throat. I can confirm that the shooter is deceased and was shot by one of our officers at the scene. I recognize that the death of this individual is difficult news for his family, and my thoughts and prayers are also with them, as they have suffered an unimaginable loss. Myra jumped up, causing the media relations officer to pull back in his chair. What the fuck? Why are you talking about the family of this killer? A flustered media relations officer opened his file. It's standard operating procedure to acknowledge the families of all involved. In this case, the family of the killer, he stuttered. Are you nuts? That's also against policy, sir. We can't say nuts anymore. The media officer regretted saying it as soon as it came out of his mouth. He's not wrong, Chief De Silva interrupted. We have to be politically correct now. I can't have people protesting outside the building. You know what else is not politically correct? Myra was seething. Putting your sidearm in your duty belt, putting on a Kevlar vest over your chest, and heading out to a patrol vehicle with police written all over it, making yourself a goddamn target. Calm down, Nick, De Silva shouted. I can't call you nuts, but every time I put on my uniform, I have some idiot telling me they pay my wages, punks calling me a pig, and psychopaths who point their hand at me like it's a gun, cock it, and pretend to shoot. Myra stood toe-to-toe with the chief. We have one officer in the hospital who may not make it, and another one sweating bullets, hoping he's not going to be charged with murder because he's now under investigation for killing a cop killer. And you're up here practicing how to send your condolences to the fucking maniacs who created and raised this monster? That's enough, De Silva shouted at the media relations, as the media relations officer sank back in his chair. Enough? The intensity in Myra's voice spilled outside the room. Enough of what? Enough of having to attend a full police funeral while trying to look at the grieving widow? Enough of trying not to make eye contact with your fellow officers while a piper plays Amazing Grace? Enough of having to watch your co-workers walk by his kids saying, oh, your father was a good officer? Is that what we've had enough of? Chief De Silva turned on his heels of his drill boots and locked up in front of the media relations officer. Constable, you're dismissed. Close the door behind you. It took only 2 giant steps for the media relations officer to get clear of the chief's office. He slammed the door a little too loudly, but didn't look back to see if anyone noticed. De Silva went back at Myra with his chest puffed out. Don't you ever question me like that again. Or what? The veins in Myra's neck bulged. The 2 men began a choreographed dance of who throws the first punch. These officers need your leadership right now, not to watch you bow down to your political masters and protest groups. The chief's eyes flashed while he thrust his index finger at Myra's chest. I lead every day. I don't have the luxury of pulling the shit that you do. I have to think about what's best for the whole force, not just myself. Myra pushed the chief's hand away, then Groa said. The 2 circled each other like gladiators, each knowing how far they could go without repercussions. The game has changed, Nick. I know. Our officers don't feel safe anymore. We no longer have control. We're ruled by special interest groups. Myra looked into De Silva's eyes for validation that his old friend was still there. We're doing our best, The chief broke eye contact with him to hide the doubt in his own mind. The system is broken. We go from call to call, and there isn't any time to recover. Myra relaxed a little. Bob, our officers feel mistreated by government and pushed to the brink of exhaustion because we're so under-resourced. That officer went out last night and unlocked his car door, then took a bullet to the chest. Now you want to send condolences to the family who raised the asshole who shot him. He couldn't hide the quiver in his voice. There's a whole lot fucked up about that. De Silva fell into the big leather chair behind his desk. The adrenaline began to flow backwards, allowing his head to clear. You don't think I hurt? The blood drained from my body last night when I heard that shot. Myra sank down in the chair across from him. You were my idol. I used to watch you and think, man, I want to be like that guy. The chief let out a ragged laugh. I used to think the same thing about you. He reached up and pulled his collar open. Jesus, I can't believe this happened. He was ambushed. Myra noticed how De Silva suddenly seemed deflated. Security's going to have to get a lot tighter around here. How did we become the bad guys? Retirement is calling me, the chief admitted. Looks real good today. He grabbed the arms of the chair. How does this end, Nick? That young constable has gone back telling the story of the two old bulls locking horns on the 4th floor. Well, I need some time off. I was going to ask you if I could take a couple of weeks. I need to press the reset button. Myra bit the inside of his lip to stop himself from talking. De Silva raised an eyebrow. I didn't think I'd ever hear you say that. Myra chuckled. Times are changing. Okay, here's how it's going to go down. The chief hoisted himself up from the chair. Tell your staff I ordered you to take 2 weeks off. I'll call you an asshole to my staff, and you'll look angry. He looked at Myra. In other words, a normal day. Nick stood up, feeling like he had dragged himself out of a physical fight. Sounds good. Now get lost. I have to hold a news conference. De Silva reached up and tried to hook his collar back up. Jesus, I hate this collar. Bob, one more thing. Myra stopped at the door before he opened it. De Silva fumbled with his shirt collar. What's that? You apologize to the killer's family, and I'll beat the shit out of you in the parking lot, just like old times. Make it 3 weeks. The chief finally found the hook and closed the collar. He picked up the sheet of media lines and threw them in the garbage. Make it 4. I'm bigger than you. Just kidding. I'll go nuts if I had to stay home.